Hi guys, what's going on, and welcome back to another episode of Conqueror's Blade. And we're going to be continuing looking at the premium units, and this time we are going to be taking a look at the Seastag Deathdealers. These are basically the musket infantry, one of the premium musket infantry. So, what positive things can I say about these? Well, not a lot. They're frankly horrible. I hate them in almost every single way. They are pretty frustrating unit to play, and I'm kind of going to walk you through why I don't like them. But before we get too negative on them, let's just touch on the few positives they do have. Now, one of the main positives is their leadership cost at 125. Now, they're not actually the cheapest to buy in terms of the tech tree. I think they are 400,000 silver. I don't know if I can actually double check that anymore, because now I've got them. We actually head over to the range infantry. We can actually have a look. I don't think it's gonna tell me anymore, but I think they're 400,000 silver, or the equivalent in sovereigns. So they're still quite expensive to buy, but they are the lowest leadership cost unit out of the premium ones. So if you just want that 10% bonus to honor, 10% bonus to bronze, etc., then these are the ones that are going to keep your most leadership for other units. So if you're not really bothered about them, you don't want them as a combat unit, but you just want the cheapest unit you can get, then these are reasonable, because they're actually cheaper than the Black Dragon Archers, which are actually 130 despite being a lower tier unit. But that is about where the positives for me end and the negatives start. Starting from the off, 21-man unit size. It's well undersized. You miss those extra units. It kind of feels like you're just a little bit down on men all the time, and by the consequence of that, you're losing firepower. As a result, small range units means, less range damage potential. Moving on from that, the other thing I noticed is just their health is just abysmally low. I've actually bear in mind, I put a life doctrine on here to give them an extra 250 boost. But without that, their health is like 1600. Honestly, if you sneeze in their general direction, they die. They are utterly so feeble. It makes them one shot to enemy archer heroes. If the enemy archers use an explosive arrow against you, 4 of them end up dying. They just do not stand up at all in any sort of ranged combat. And that's a problem, because it kind of means that they just can't really do anything compared to a normal musket infantry, which, at least has the damage potential, the resilience to at least resist at least a little bit of fire. I know ranged units die pretty quickly across the board when they start getting hit, but these guys do so in pretty spectacular fashion. On top of this, their piercing damage and their piercing armor penetration, it's okay, but they are a 3-star unit. Now, if we pop over back down to the tech tree and scroll down, you can see, like, for example, an equivalent unit of Iron Cap Arquebusiers. So they're starting off at a similar point, but once you start to get them leveled, if we head over to my ones, wherever they've gone, at the end, on down, and you'll see they're quite a bit higher. So if we're comparing a half-star lower unit, and this is eliteed, but so are the Seastag Deathdealers, they're level 20, and these guys are already doing more damage and more AP, and have, almost twice as much health and better armor values, and they're a half-star lower unit. So it kind of brings into question then, really, what's the point of these guys? Because they don't hold up very well against enemy fire, they don't deal that much damage, and they're an excessively small unit size. They do have 5 more range, but they really just couldn't hit a barn door if you stuck it right in front of them, as we'll see kind of when we hop into some battles. They really are hopeless at hitting anything. So unless you're dead close, then you can't really very easily, at least I find, apply this damage. At least not compared to what I find the the lower tier muskets actually do. The actual tech tree muskets seem to be far superior. And then I think when you start comparing these against something like the javelins, which I reviewed in my last video, which is also a 3-star unit, then hands down, I would pick these javelins every time. And in all honesty, I would honestly pick a unit of serfs over these guys. But having sort of shat on them a little bit, let's actually hop into some gameplay. I actually had to play quite a few games with these guys to even get, well, it's not even a good piece of gameplay footage, but a semi-decent piece of gameplay footage. So if you're getting a bit of an idea of how this review's going, it's not going to end vastly positively for them. Anyway, let's hop into a battle and see how we got on. So, we are into our first battle, and we are actually attacking on a siege battle this time. And I've just been slowly pushing up with these guys, trying to kind of wait a little bit for the rest of the team to come up as well. And as we're kind of flanking around towards the B point, see a few enemies come around, so I stop and open fire. And then you can sort of see at that sort of distance, the accuracy just isn't there. They can't really hit anything. So I shift up a little bit closer, and we do score some hits here. At this sort of range, where they can't really be threatened, shooting at sort of lesser numbers of enemy units with lots of friendly support, they can do some damage. You can see we've racked up a couple of kills there. But, you know, still, if I had... you know, that 2.5-star unit of musketeers, I would still expect to do better damage, because I think you'll be able to apply better damage because they're that much more accurate. They also, same with all range units, get a little bit confused about which to target, so at least they have the ability to choose which direction you want them to shoot, which is what I do to then get them there. I then see some Imperial Guards starting to come in. We have taken a few casualties at this point, pretty much just down to a few stray range shots. As I say, because these guys have so little health, they're pretty much one-hit kill to all enemy bow heroes, and pretty much any enemy range unit. You know, if a Prefecture Archer fires an arrow at you, then the unit will die in one hit. So it's very easy when you've only got 21 people to end up with a smaller squad pretty fast, which is kind of what happened to me a little bit there. Anyway, I was kind of waiting around this corner with a bit of friendly support until we could sort of clear things out a bit. You can see kind of the arrows coming in from enemy archers who are firing down on the supply point, so I didn't want to push out around the corner. And as we do that, we get outflanked by some of these Imperial Spear Guard, who actually turn right to try and engage our allies there on the corner. And thankfully that gives us our muskets a good opportunity to actually get some pretty close range damage. And again, we rack up another good couple of kills. On a higher tier unit. So shooting into the back of well armoured units, they still do damage, because they do of course still have that 2,500 armour penetration. So so long as they're not shooting at the front of a shielded unit at least, they will apply decent damage if they can hit at that sort of range. And at that sort of range there, where it's like 10 meters, something like that, they do hit properly, and they work well at that. It's just those sort of situations don't really occur very often. So anyway, so with them clear, and with the fact that we were sort of starting to push harder onto the B point, a lot of those archers got taken out. I started to push up a bit. We secure a random hero kill. Even on the video, I missed where we actually got that kill. Obviously, a stray hero poked his head out the cannon and got shot. So I kind of put him to the side there. Obviously, they've got enemy ranged at the end of this tunnel, so I was a little bit nervous about that. And you can see as I engaged there, we just took another couple of casualties on that unit. I'm not quite sure where from. It's obviously just a few shots coming in and inflicting some casualties on us. So I was kind of trying to think about if we can get set up in line with this tunnel to provide a bit of fire support down the line, try and get some hits that way. By the time we actually cleared out the enemy range units at the end, though, it's pretty much the end. But we've pushed on. We've got the B point now. Our allies have managed to secure that. So I'm starting to think about trying to push in to try and then secure the cap. But there's still quite a few enemy infantry units here. Obviously, I think I'm at the end of the tunnel now, and you can see we're basically getting no hits beyond my own hit. You see the odd musket shot skimming over the top and stuff, and this is only sort of 30-40 meters range, and the unit still can't hit anything. I mean, that's just kind of what this accuracy on this unit is like. It's just so mediocre that it just really can't hit a barn door if it's right in front of them. And that's kind of the problem. I mean, look, they're not far away, and yet they're still out of range. And then you put them too close, and they get killed because they're so vulnerable. So, yeah, I feel it's hard to apply the damage potential that they have, even with that, 2,500 damage and armor penetration. So, as we push up, we seem to be having quite a good allied push. So I start to move the units up a little bit more, trying to get ready in position. We got hit by this guy around here, and I managed to screw up a little bit here. I pulled the unit back to the wall there just as I run up, because I thought they were going to get grape shotted. And then, of course, I'm now fighting a poleaxe, and I've got about a third health. I get the drop on him initially. We go for that, but then he gets the pushback on me, which knocks me down, and then he gets to use some of his ultimates on me, and obviously I go down, unfortunately. And that spells the end of this one for this campaign. I do then get the unit to push up a little bit more and get them to drop in a little bit of fire support extra with the thing, and we do actually go on to win this battle. But that's really it for the Seastag Deathdealers. Okay, let's hop into a second fight and see if we can see them from a slightly different angle. Battle number 2, and we're actually on the defending side this time. And I've basically just set my guys up here at the back. I'm trying to set them so they can fire down that tunnel. For some reason, mostly because I'm a moron, I didn't set them to the tighter formation, which would have made a lot more sense. And then we just cut forward a couple of minutes to when the enemies actually arrive, so you don't just see me standing around on a wall for a few minutes. And yeah, we immediately start to get pushed, 2 dual blades, and I think that's a spear there as well. So I'm just trying to hold them up effectively on this corridor, because my hope was with my musket troops being stood in that corridor, they'll be able to shoot down the corridor. You can see the shots, you can see those tracer rounds coming through, and we'll be able to apply a decent amount of damage by sort of holding them in this fire zone. That was kind of my plan. As you can see, at this range, they don't really hit a lot. They're pretty well firing away. There's a couple of them who can't shoot because they can't quite see down the tunnel, but the bulk of them can. You see the shots coming past every now and then. You see the tracer rounds from my muskets. But generally, they really just don't hit anything. I try and instruct them to fire down. You can see a volley goes off. We actually got a kill from that volley, a singular. You can see you get the odd hit in again, particularly against some of those archers there at the back. But this sort of range, they really don't score much in the way of hits. They're just too inaccurate to fire at this sort of distance. But as I've said kind of previously, I don't feel you can reasonably expect to get much closer before you start to put yourself in danger of losing the unit really quite quickly. So in that sense, it's where I kind of feel they struggle a lot. They kind of play a little bit like the crossbows in a sense, except they don't have the damage, they don't have the accuracy, and they don't go through shields. So they kind of, but in terms of the close range gameplay. So again, I was still kind of trying to persevere with this tactic and trying to keep these guys sort of locked down in this tunnel, trying to keep them firing down there. And they do score a few hits, you know, they do get some damage in. But again, for a 3-star unit, for 400,000 silver, I'm not sure it's worth it. I think I would rather have the archers, which I didn't think were a particularly great unit, but they're certainly better than these guys in my opinion. So yeah, so it's basically me just now trying to pin them down here. A poor dual blades gets caught by my ultimate. Not a lot they can do against that. Bish bash bosh. And yeah, they're just keeping that base of fire down on this tunnel basically, trying to keep the enemy down and trying to delay them from being able to get to the A point. Because obviously you've got to defend on this desert fortress. You've got quite a long timer, so you really have to hold them for quite a long time on this initial outer wall before you start to fall back into the city sort of thing. And we've got a few friendly allies here as well. So far I haven't really taken much in the way of casualties, but that's pretty well because they are quite well protected from here. But you can see, you can see sort of the hits we're getting in there now. Getting the odd hit, look, and when you do hit, we are doing sort of 1,500, 2,000. So it does have a decent damage output. But as I say, it's the weakness of the unit and the inaccuracy or the inability to effectively apply that damage, which kind of makes them pretty poor to me. A few arrows start coming in, so I start taking damage. Good few units die pretty quickly, so I sort of panic, think, oh, I don't want to stand there. Let's pull out. Maybe I can get some good side shots on, which we get an odd shot or two off. But then some enemy archers at the back start putting in some fire on us, and you'll see, look how quickly we die. The unit just absolutely gets decimated from only really a few arrows coming in, and we're basically down to like a 7-man unit there pretty quickly, within a couple of seconds. So I drag what's remaining back now, and they just sort of form a little bit of a backlight unit. At that point, I kind of just forget about them and just focus on trying to get kills from a hero, which actually turns out to be much more successful than actually just worrying about the unit. So really, that about sums up my opinions on the Seastag Deathdealers. The only benefit for me is the leadership cost is the lowest of all the premium units. So if you're just interested in the 10% buff, then that's kind of one of the benefits there. As a unit, I find them pretty horrific. They're far too weak. They have no health or no armor. And I know that's true of all ranged units, but these take it to the extreme, and it makes it really hard for them to stay alive. Their damage potential, if they could hit anything, is okay, but they can't hit anything. So you can have all the damage in the world, but if you're going to shoot it at the sky, it doesn't really help you. So for me, they're not really a worthwhile unit. Certainly not one I'm going to be taking into battle really in future. Anyway, that's all I've got for you today. Do let me know what you think about these guys in the comments down below. We'll be continuing these. We've still got the pikes and the shields to look at in terms of the premium units, so I'll be looking at them shortly as well. And yeah, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Subscribe to the channel for a load more Conqueror's Blade content, and we shall see you all on the next video.